what's happening with cash? What is a digital currency and social credit system? I'm going to really skip on that because I think I'm talking to probably preaching to the converted in here, most of you. But I'll go through that with you. What is the current situation with legislation? And I'll talk about that as well on using cash. And then last but not least, I want to talk about what I've been doing, which is very much street-based activism. It's very much where my passion is and my strength, because I've been doing that for years, pre-lockdown. And talk about what I've learned going around the country about keeping cash. And then lastly, I want to give you some inspiration as to what I think is going to happen with keeping cash in this country. So very briefly, as I said, because I think most of you are really well versed about central bank digital currency. And I think, as I said to a couple of people I was talking to at the beginning when I came into the room, I really feel, I mean, we planned this, I talked to Simon months ago and said I'd talk about this, but I really feel this is the issue of the moment. This is the issue. And as I keep saying when I talk around the country, this is everything. Because once we go cashless, you won't be able to come to events like this. You won't be able to go to rallies, whatever you think about rallies or marches. You won't be able to have your off-grid communities either. I'm sorry, that will be just a pipe dream. Because once we go cashless, they control everything we do. It is endgame when we go cashless. So I ask you, and that's not to put a downer on any of the other causes, which to me are very important, but they're peripheral, in my opinion, to this. Because this is the ultimate way. I think Henry Kissinger said this. I was reading something from Henry Kissinger last night. He said this when he was talking about the future. He said, once you control the food and the money completely, they've always controlled money, but this is completely, then you completely control the population. So if there's anything you're going to put your time to, and I'm going to ask you to do that today as well, action is the most important thing, then I would ask you to think about this. Because actually, and I'm going to talk about this today, this is the winning issue as well with the public. It's not divisive to talk to people about going cashless. I rarely get someone that disagrees with me when I'm on the streets. They might be not interested or passive, but those I engage with agree. It goes across all political divides, left, right. It doesn't matter when you're talking about this issue. And we have to get smarter at that as a freedom movement about how we appeal to the rest of the population, because sadly, it can't just keep being us. We have to think about how we campaign to appeal to other people. So as we said, the central bank digital currency, the reason it is a threat is because it can be programmed. Your money can be programmed in the sense of, you've had too many beers this week. That's bad for your health. Your card or your biometric ID will be cut off. You've used too much diesel or petrol. You can't go to the petrol station this week. That's if they're going to still be open in the future. You've had too much dairy produce, high carbon footprint. No ice cream for you this week. Whatever it is, and when you start thinking about all the products, all the services around the UK and the shops, most of them have a carbon footprint or a social footprint, if I can call it that, something that's bad for your health, for the community. Whatever it is, they can deem it something they can program. And it started, we need to be scared, because as I said earlier, my husband and I, we've always had a joint account since we've been married. We've had 2 bank accounts frozen. The first account, HSBC this is, the first account, I went to see my MP about this, he was very sympathetic. The first account, we could almost put it down to, the kind of system that's digital and something's happened. When it happened the second time, I knew it was about who I am and what I do. Because I've been campaigning for years, and I don't think it's just about my cash campaigning or my anti-lockdown campaigning. I did a data subject request, which is where you get under GDPR all your records from the bank. Come through very quickly. Great big pile of paper. I demanded it on paper. I didn't want it by email. And I looked through, and they blocked it all out, which is really ominous. And apparently they can do that under GDPR as well. We're all given codes now, behavior codes. Did you know that? And they started in 2019. And for me, I don't know about the rest, but I think it was 2019. And I tracked back. I thought, well, what was going on in 2019 when I got a bad behaviour code? And I used to, whatever you think about this, and I haven't had time the last 3 years, I used to campaign against the banks that were arming Israel. That's what I used to do. I used to go round the counties in the west of the country, and I used to campaign outside banks and ask people to stop using them. So that, I have a feeling that's why I started getting the bad rating before the lockdown. It's probably gone up even further, my bad rating, since the lockdown. But what I'm trying to say here to you guys is this system has already started. Programmable money has started. Nigel Farage, whatever we think of him, well done to him for making this an issue of national recognition that we have a problem with banks controlling people and a cancel culture of cancelling our bank accounts. Whether that comes to fruition with Rishi Sunak, because obviously he's just thinking of the election, isn't he? That's all he's thinking about, remains to be seen. Or if we get a Labour government, obviously that will change. But the fact it's on the agenda, I think, is really, really significant. Of course, programmable money isn't just going to be about how you spend. It's going to be linked to your earnings as well, if you look into this, and into state benefits or welfare, whatever you want to call it. It will be linked to what you do, even your access to housing in the future with the system that's rolling out. So it is everything. Everything's going to be controlled. So what's happening with cash? As we know, as you've just said, we're all seeing it. I see it increasingly every day, this huge drive to close the cash points of the banks down as well, which is what's happening. And where I live near Swindon and Wiltshire, because I live in Wiltshire now, not Gloucestershire, apparently the local MP tells me that they've got a mobile bank now, a van that goes around the little towns and villages. And in the north of the country, those of you from the further north, in rural parts, I hear this is happening everywhere. So it's happening, and they're announcing more and more closures. So this is the big problem. They are pushing us into a situation where it's coercion, where we can't use cash. The other big part of this new system kicking in is that shops are moving cashless with the use of self-service tills. Boycott them, won't you? Don't use them. Queue up and have a human being talk to you, even if they're a bit rude, although I don't find them rude normally. They're normally quite thankful for you queuing up, aren't they? But, you know, do that thing of, and it doesn't take much longer in my opinion, queue up and use a proper till. And if there's no one there, as I said in Glasgow last week, you go, over here, I need to be served, and they come over. Contactless and payment apps are increasing everywhere. Everything you do now, if you still do shop online, and I know sometimes it's really hard to avoid it, there are still some things we might need to do. We can't all be completely absolutists. We have to live in this goddamn society. You will notice that everything is linked to going on your phone app. My husband's found this, haven't you? And approving a payment on the app. So it's moving very quickly to all this agenda. As we know, the pandemic, the scamdemic as I call it, was the big push to get people used to using digital systems even more. They'd been introduced, hadn't they, the apps and the contactless and the phone apps. They'd been introduced prior to that, but this was a big push to get people to use it even more. And as we know, and I hope you all managed to do that, there's recently been a consultation with the Bank of England about starting central bank digital currency. And in my opinion, they will. I'll come to that in a moment. They will introduce it. So I have to wait to see the outcome. So just a few figures on cash point closures there. That was last year, that figure. 8,000 ATMs have been switched off. This was from last year, according to research by Which, equating to a fall of around 13%. And cash machines were put out of action. Have you noticed that? You go to the cash machine, it's got no cash. Oh, sorry, can only give you £30. And of course, it's just this normalization process, isn't it? Getting you used to the fact you can't get cash. It's all the frog in the pan type stuff that's going on, the boiling frog in the pan. Don't know if you can see that one. This shows you how much contactless payments have gone up. 2020, we know why it went up to 27%. It's probably gone up even more in the last couple of years. And those of you, and this isn't me patronising or being condescending in any way, if any of you still have those apps on your phone where you can go like that in the supermarket, please uninstall them. It's not a judgment on you, but what you're unwittingly doing if you've got those apps is you are helping this system go even faster than it is. And that's just a screenshot about the central bank digital currencies, talking about the fact that there's lots of analysis actually, if you look into this, if you've got the time, from economists on our side of the fence, if you like, if I could call it that, and people from this world, if you like, but they're all saying the same thing. There's huge problems with a central bank digital currency. They know it as well. So there's lots of inconsistencies as to why it's not going to work. So a few points that, and I did put this together, I've edited it a bit last year, that I feel are encouraging, is that we have to take into account, a lot of people say to me, well, they're going to abolish cash. They're not going to abolish cash. They're just going to make it hard for us to get hold of it and use it. That's what they're going to do. They the year before, 2021, they passed legislation in the Financial Services Bill, I'll show you a screenshot in a moment, that legislated to guarantee they'd keep cash in circulation. So there's already legislation in place. So that's not going to be our route to stop this. It's going to be the shops and businesses that are going to coerce us into it. Employers, they're going to not pay in cash any longer or not accept cash. But the good news is, like I said, cash is up in circulation in the UK. I think it's by about 15%, and that's because we're living in really hard times. People need to use money. They need to manage their money. And when you've got cash in your hand, as you know, and this is what's so good about the cash-only bar, you'll know if you've drunk too much today, although some of you might already know that, I don't know, is you'll look in your pocket and think, where's all my money gone? Whereas if you're using we know this from the past, because we're not judging anyone. We've done it before, used debit cards. You can just pay for everything and not realise what you've spent, which is, for a younger generation, is awful, isn't it, with the amount of debt that they're going to be getting into. So cash is up in circulation because of and there's a whole thing on the Bank of England website about how that happens in all countries as well, and it's happening in other countries. And the other reason I ask you to go away and think about, is what's the biggest economy in the world is the illegal economy. All types of illegal economies, whether it's trafficking people, trafficking body parts, the sex industry, whatever it is, it's the biggest illegal economy in this country. They don't always document it, but it's there if you look into it. And in other countries, it's the biggest global economy. Sometimes they sometimes call it a shadow economy. I call it an illegal economy, and it's a cash economy. Of course, it's a cash economy. They're not going to do away with cash. It's not going to go. It's just what we need to look at about how they stop us from using it. There was a campaign, for whatever reasons that might be, whether it's for window dressing or PR, public relations. In 2021, there was a Keep Cash campaign that led to that legislation that I just mentioned. And I think because we were all so busy with the lockdown and what was going on with vaccines, I don't think we noticed. But Martin Lewis, whatever we think of him, Waitrose, M&S, and the post office got together. And of course, the post office, whatever you think, post office, because you can pay your bills in cash there and get a gyro and pay your bills rather than paying them online. They got together and they had a Keep Cash campaign. So it's worth bearing in mind if you're in local towns about trying to speak, I know some of them are on a franchise, but trying to speak to some of the managers about when you're campaigning for cash. I don't know if you can see that, some cash circulation figures. You can see the different notes with the different colours. I think the biggest note that's gone up is, didn't I say it was the £20 note, isn't it? It's the biggest note that's gone up. Probably because what's your average spend when you go out now? It's probably nearer 20 quid, isn't it? Than, I know, a couple of coffees you used to, and a bite to eat under a tenner. I think it's probably gone up, probably. That's probably right. Average banknote growth rate. And that's the different notes. So the purple is the £20 note. And that's just a screenshot of the Financial Services and Markets Bill. There was lots of stuff about cryptocurrency in there, cracking down on it as well. if you're interested in that. Personally, I'm not going to get into that today. Personally, I'd say if you're a freedom activist, you do not support cryptocurrency. But it's up to you to go away and decide on that. So just a few points, because a lot of people say to me, and we saw that video and it was fantastic, and I applaud him for doing it, of Piers Corbyn, trying to pay with coins for some strawberries. Have you all seen that video? Absolutely. Fantastic that he did that, but actually, and a lot of people say this and it's not true, lawfully they can refuse your cash when you pay for something. Because lawfully, if I went up to this bar, and they take cash, it's not a problem, but if I went to this bar and they were happy for me to pay, I say, do you want to take my mobile phone if I have a few drinks here, and that's payment. If they wanted to, that's lawful as well. They can take whatever they want. That is the law. So unfortunately, it is unlawful to not pay the way they want you to. But once service is complete, so I always say to people, once you've had a meal or a drink, if you go to someone that still works that way, because they often take your payment up front, don't they? They're not stupid. And you then say, well, sorry, that's all I've got, and you put cash. They have to take it as payment. The thing where the legislation is not there, so this is something to think about if we carry on campaigning with cash, and I haven't got around to doing this, it's something somebody needs to do, is that there is no legislation at the moment on the rights of the public, of us, the people, on the use of biometrics to pay. There is no legislation in terms of our rights on that. And it's something that we need to look at having a campaign on, because that is where all this programmable money, that's how they're doing it. It's the tool that they're using. And I've just been told today that if you go through Heathrow Airport now, you have to stand in the booth that scans your face. Those of you, I haven't managed to go abroad for a few years. I'm not looking forward to it if I do. I'd probably walk out the airport in disgust, probably, but probably not going to get a holiday with the way I am at the airport, no. But apparently, the facial recognition is already in place at the airports. So this technology is kicking in without our consent again. Once again, it goes back to that. Where have we consented? Where's the legislation? We need protection on biometrics. So overall, looking at all this, it seems really awful, doesn't it? We've got this huge, it feels like this all-encompassing evil system that's going to control our money in every way that's kicking in. It feels so impossible. And so many people say to me, well, I meet around the country, why do you bother, Debbie? It's not going to make any difference. This has been happening for years. It's going to go ahead. I'll tell you why it makes a difference. It's because look what we did during the lockdown. They wanted to keep us like that. You do know that, don't you? If you look into the into information about it, they wanted to keep us restricted, our rights taken away as they were during that. They wanted to keep that, and the reason they couldn't do it is because there were too many people that were unvaxxed in this country. If you look at ONS statistics, it was almost a third of people. A third! Not that it comes over that way when we're out on the streets, I know. But when you think about that, how could they bring in the vaccine passports, which was the gateway to this, of course. That's what this was about, really, controlling us this way. How could they do it? Look what we did, because we all got off our backsides. We got to London, or we went down to the street corner and we leafleted, or we put the light paper through the door. All the things that we did. Of course we can do it, but we have to all get together. And this is a plea to those of you out there. Can we all please just stop this ridiculous gossip in the freedom movement about shills, controlled opposition, and just get together? Honestly, it has to be said, because I was talking about this at the beginning with somebody, it's so damaging, because we're all so divided, and we're doing exactly what the rest of the population do that we criticise them for. We're being pathetic, we're being childish, we're bullying each other. I'm not saying you do that here, but there's people doing this, and it has to stop, because we all need to get back together, we need to put our differences aside, and we're all really different. Look at us, we're all very different people. And that's our power. We need to get together. And I ask you, this is the issue. This is the issue we need to get together on. So just a few more things. Why campaigning on this? This is what I find. I've been all over the country, working with lots of groups that are brilliant, actually. If I can mention the group here in Leicester are fantastic. I'm working with groups in Manchester, Liverpool, Cardiff. I'll talk about Cardiff in a moment. But what I've learned is that it has to be local groups campaigning in the local communities. And what you have to do if you want it to be successful, I'm gonna give you the case study from Cardiff. Now in Cardiff, they've just announced whatever we want to call it, low emission zones, 50 minutes, it's all the same thing. They've just announced restrictions are coming in there. And there's a lady there, I'm not going to say her name, who's been texting me, and we talk about what can she do. What she has done, and she's done this on her own, that's one person, look how inspiring this. She's gone around Cardiff, she's got all the mosques to support her, she's got all the churches, can you believe that? On this issue, she's got all the churches to support her. She's now got, she's just sent me a message today, I'm going to read it out. Okay, she said the response to the flyers, she's going around with loads of flyers they're fundraising for, has been very brilliant, and they're all very concerned. We've got 2 more mosques that I can go in and talk to before, after prayers. The churches have invited me to their coffee mornings. She said she's got garages, can you believe, to take the leaflets on the counter, and she's got 4 radio stations that are going to cover a rally she's doing in a few weeks' time. That's one person. Look what she's done. Now, the reason I'm reading that out is it shows you what we can do. We're all so powerful. And on that point, I just want to say, and this isn't an attack on anybody, it's me. I got told off for having a logical brain in Liverpool last week, but I can't help it because I've been an activist for years and I'm always trying to think of the end result. What we have to do is that if I could ask, and those yellow badges people are sharing are really good, but can I ask that we change it to we will act? We will act, because that's the only way you're going to change it. Actions. Look at whatever you think of history. If you look at history, it's actions that change things. And that is what they're scared of. They are scared of us all acting, like we did during lockdown when we got out and we acted. So do not consent, but do not act. It has to go together.
So for those of you who think this is all, potentially still a far-fetched future, in the Netherlands, there's already an Aldi where you just wander in, you take what shopping you want and you leave again. You don't exchange, you don't even flash your bank card or your telephone at them. And you do get denied cigarettes. If you smoke too much, you do get denied your beer. That's one. The way the Netherlands introduce stuff like this is always by first dangling a carrot at the population and going, look, if we privatize healthcare here, you will get a bonus back at the end of the year if you don't use your insurance. And within a year, that bonus actually turns into the penalty of a no claims bonus that you lose, rather. So it's really sneaky the way they introduce things. There was a club there in Rotterdam on a barge where you could only be a member if you were chipped and you had 3,000 euros on your chip and you could just wander in. And of course, this became an elite thing that everybody envied and everybody wanted. And now getting chipped in the Netherlands is perfectly normal just to pay. Also in Africa, there's something that I want to urgently draw your attention to. There's a consortium consisting of MasterCard, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, and Trust Stamp, who are a digital verification company. And they've been rolling out a program that links your vaccination status to your bank account. So, these are all very real developments. And the more that we know from around the globe where things are happening, the more we can actually anticipate and oppose.
Just one more point, which I didn't add. The biggest thing we all need to get better at, and I was talking to a guy earlier, and I'm sorry if I didn't catch your name, I don't know where you are. Somebody that was friends with Jeff Wyatt that was talking to me. Can't remember where he's gone. He said he was going to come back and talk to me. This is what we were talking about, is the need for us as activists, and some have been doing this really well, to get into the councils and scrutinise freedom of information requests, lobby the councillors. On this issue in particular, I think we can be really successful as well on the cash issue, because a lot of the MPs, I've been talking to my local MP, are very much on board with keeping cash. I think we've got some power in this, more than the 15-minute city issue, which I haven't really touched on today. This issue, which of course they need us to go completely cashless if they want that to work. That can only ultimately work, 15-minute cities, LEZs, if we go completely cashless. So getting into the councils, if you want to, and I know that's where the corruption starts and everyone's worried about being corrupted, stand for office on a keep cash or 15-minute city issue. Look what they've done in London. They didn't win in the High Court, but they certainly put the issue on the agenda, haven't they? That's what activism does. See, it is powerful. They've put the issue on the agenda. Doesn't matter if Rishi Sunak's being opportunistic. Of course he bloody is. He's a politician. But if he's using it and it helps us because he thinks he's going to get some votes out of it, then this is what we need to do, is put these issues on the agenda. Any other questions?
Could you just tell me where you can get those little £20 notes with the little slogan on "Keep It Cash"? Because I got hold of some and went along the entire, taxi rank trying to give these 20 quid notes away. People were actually refusing them, but I think they're really, really powerful.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I think someone's beckoning behind. Have you got some?
No, downstairs.
Oh, downstairs.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
And coming to the getting involved in local politics, we stood 22 candidates in Grantham as independents. We managed to get 2 independents who were awake onto the council. One of whom is Tim Harrison, local businessman. Absolutely fantastic. And next time we actually put the Tories out of control for the first time in over 100 years. So it can be done.
Oh, fantastic. It can be done, see? Yep. Just got to put our efforts in, haven't we? Yeah. Any other questions about keeping cash?
If you offer somebody legal tender and they refuse it, that's their problem. But you're saying that they can ask what they want.
Yes, lawfully they can.
That surprises me. I've always been under the impression...
It's always been that way, going back a long, long time, yeah.
Yeah, I've always been under the impression if you offer somebody legal tender and they don't want it, you can pick up the goods and go. Say, thank you, okay. You don't want paying then.
Well, you could, but then obviously they can take measures against you if they wanted to, or they could call the police. I mean, I know it's shocking, some people don't believe, but it's actually lawful for them to take whatever payment they want, and if they want to go contactless, of course, that's their choice. As I said, the only other way to do it, and I've done it a couple of times, and I know other people have given me accounts, and obviously Piers with his strawberries, is to take your goods and just put the cash and walk away, whether they want to challenge that. But I do think that civil disobedience is something we should all be doing more, because it's not always about, it just sends a message, sorry, we're not happy with this, to the businesses more than anything, rather than the legal system, which, as I said, it's already got a framework there to protect cash. It's all our campaigning, I think, has to be at the corporate world, because they're the ones that are pushing this. Obviously, the government's in cahoots, but yeah.
It's just a shame that asleep. If we all said cashless, stuff you, I'll go somewhere else. It's a day. It would collapse in a day.
You feel it's too late?
If everybody said, I'm not paying, I'm paying cash, it would collapse in a day. But you've got the normies who are not awake. And that's a problem.
But we also said that during the lockdown, didn't we? People weren't awake, but loads didn't get vaxxed. And when I talk to people, and this is why we need masses of more people going out doing stuff on this, and I do think that day's going to come soon because it's closing in. They're getting ready to introduce CBDC and programmable money. At the moment, Merv, I think, yes, we could say lots are awake, but when I'm out on the streets and going into the shops and businesses with the flyers, which I was in, where was I? Birkenhead last Saturday, and we covered all the shops there. Anybody from that area here? No. There's a wonderful group there. We run all the shops, and most of the people I spoke to didn't even know that we are going well, not that we're going cashless, I think they can see that, but didn't know about central bank digital currency or programmable money. And they were visibly frightened when I explained it to them and agreed that it has to stop. So I think we've got to get back that kind of spirit, and I know we're missing it at the moment, to get the message out that actually it's not just that cash is going, and that's okay. The system that's coming is far worse. But I appreciate how frustrating it is to talk to people that, I know what it's like,